Welcome to the Among the Hidden review for chapters 8 through 16. So we'll start with we're going to go over a few of the notable questions and some of the chapters. And so, again, we're going to take a look here at chapter 8. And this is where we last left off of our last review for chapter 1 through 7. So I'll give you an example of what you, as you keep track and you're filling in your study guide for um, each of the chapters. In chapter 8, the setting was Luke's home. And so we have a couple of actions and important developments in this chapter. This is why I chose to go over this one. Um, and so with that, we look here and we start with one early morning. Everybody leaves, the family leaves. And again, remember, Luke is. He's relegated to really his living in hiding and living in fear and living in his basically his room. He can't go out really, and he's starting to feel that. He's starting to feel almost in a way he wants to explore. He wants to see what else is out there. So here we are for chapter 8, and again, um, so his family leaves, and they forget to raise the window shade in the kitchen. So he realizes no one can look in. So what he decides to do is he gets excited and decides to do some mundane things like chores and walk around the home without, for the first time, and not have any fear of being caught. However, his father comes home early and finds out and realizes that he was walking around and they never pulled up the shade. So of course his father just finds him in his room and proceeds to tell him and list off all these negatives, but you can see and what could happen if he doesn't remain hidden. And so again, as he's doing this and Luke's father leaves, one of the more important developments and intriguing developments is Luke looks out the window at the neighbor, the sports family window, and he sees another face, another child. So, and that's where that chapter ends, is where he looks out and he sees that. So those are some important developments here. So um, in the chapter here, some important things to remember. And again, remember you are just filling in this chart. It's really informal. You're not gonna do a whole diatribe and list every little thing. You're only listing some important elements. So, some important things to remember is that Luke continues to be curious about the outside. So it becomes a point where, again, like anybody, they become more and more curious. You tell them they can't do it, they can't do this, and they become more and more curious. And so what ends up happening is eventually they're gonna sink or swim and decide to either just give up or they're just going to do it regardless. And then another important development here is that Luke sees another face in his neighbor's window. And so that intrigues him even more. So the next chapter we're going to look at, we're going to jump to chapter 12. So again, we're just going to pick and choose some important ones. And so in chapter 12, there is a change where now Luke is again left by himself. The setting really, it's harvest time. So his entire family is harvesting in the fields there, and preparing for and they're working, but Luke is unfortunately unable to help, even though he wants to, he cannot. He has to remain hidden. And so some important developments here is everyone but Luke is working long hours. So again, he's left by himself alone. So it leaves him to again continue to think on his own. And when you're left to your own devices, uh, he begins to devise a plan to sneak out and see who that kid was in the window, to see what that was. So, um, and he knows he has to do it before fall, before the season begins, because by him sneaking over, he'll be able to sneak around, and his footprints and everything will be hidden. Because if the leaves start falling or it starts getting cold in the mud, he'll be able to, his footprints will be tracked in the mud and in the rain. So he knows he has to do it, and he has to do it soon before this season. So one day, Luke just decides, you know what, I'm just gonna go. He decides I am going to sneak out, and what he does at the end of the chapter is he decides to sneak out. And so Some important elements here. Some important developments is he devises a plan to sneak out, to leave, and then he does sneak out, and that's where it's going to take us. We go to chapter 13, but we're going to skip to chapter 14 really, and so he is outside in a sports family home as well. This is where the setting is going to be. So he, some important things is he has left home. Okay, he's finally snuck out, but when he gets to the sports family home, he finds that the door is locked. So what he decides to do, he knows he should go back, but he can't. Something is just pushing him. He has to know who that person was inside. So he decides to tear the screen and open the door, and he goes in and he sees this home, and inside the home is vastly different than his own. It's full of life. It's bright. The paint, the furniture, everything. He sees a vast difference. And upon walking through the room, he walks into a room and he finds a girl inside at a computer. And so that, and here are some just important developments. So he breaks in, he sneaks out, he breaks into the sports family home, and he finds a girl. And who that girl is, we find out really more so in chapter 15 and 16. And so in chapter 16, um, really it takes place in Luke's home at the dinner table primarily. And so Luke is what we call conflicted in an internal conflict about keeping Jen a secret. He knows he has to, and he has to fight and try to keep that because he knows that if he were to tell his parents would ban him from leaving or going or saying. So he knows he can't. And so um, Jen and Luke, so the girl's name is Jen, and they begin to get to know each other more and more. And so they set up signals to when it's safe to meet so that they can meet up again. And we find out that Jen's parents, they did plan to have their child, so they knowingly broke the law. Um, and the ironic thing is that the government who put this law in place, Jen's dad or stepdad works for the government as a lawyer, as an attorney for the government. So so that adds to more fear from Luke being caught. And so some important elements that we have here as well is that again these two characters get to know each other, Jen and Luke, and the fact that she was planned, and the parents, even though her stepdad works for the government, knowingly and accepted to break this law for their child, which is Jen. So Jen and Luke are both have similar story in that they're both third children. So we'll go now into some select questions that will help you with your upcoming quiz. So we have here chapter 8, why was it so important to Luke that everyone in the neighborhood be away from their homes? And again, it's just so that he could walk around his home and not just be relegated to his room. It's so that he could walk around and without the fear of being caught. And for number two, Luke's glimpsed a child's face as the chapter came to an end. What was its significance or importance? That the fact that he wasn't just the only one, that he's always felt like the outsider. He's always felt like no one understands, and that no one else has this issue. But the fact that he saw another child that he's never seen before, and he's watched his neighbors, that right there lets gives him motivation that maybe the possibility that there is someone else like him out there. Chapter 9, we one of the questions I chose to go over is to compare and contrast Luke's feelings about helping his parents to their feelings about it. So again, there's always this conflict between Luke and his parents. And parents believe they're doing what's best for him because they want to protect him. But Luke wants to do normal things. And so he wants to feel like he's contributing and doing chores and doing things around the house. And even his brothers do harp on him a little bit about not being able to go to school or do chores or help out around. And he is just bored. He's hiding and staying in his room and he is just bored. But his mom tells him and his dad to stay hidden and stay safe. And his mom even tells him, just continue to read and play and sleep. Just don't worry about anything. Just be a child. Who wouldn't want that? But he wants more. He wants to live. So, chapter 10 now. Why is it significant that Sport's family was the only family that had their shades drawn? Well, because it goes back to that whole idea about the shades. The fact that the one of the construction workers saw that was working on the homes saw that the shades were down inside Luke's family's home. That gave that gentleman some suspicion, like, well, it's been hot outside when you normally put the shades up, and so yes. So the fact that the shades were drawn down, it may indicate to him that, hey, maybe they have something to hide as well, like his family. And so chapter 11 and 12, you didn't have any questions, so we jumped to 13. And we have here, how did Luke view his house? He felt it was safe, secure, a sanctuary. That he felt like as long as he stayed in there, he would be safe. He would be fine. So, um, then number two, what complication happened at the end of the chapter? Well, when he ran to the sports family door, he found that it was locked. So all this hard work, all this planning, all this huge gamble that he has for his life, it, it was possibly all for nothing. So that's what he found the complication. Then in chapter 14, describe the house from Luke's perspective. Well, he even says it that it was airy, it was bright. He describes that the paint freshly painted and the furniture was new and clean. And then who did Luke find? Well, he finds a girl at a computer, and we'll find out her name, um, which is Jen, in the later chapters. Chapter 15, what is meant by the term shadow child? And what that is meant is that, again, Luke is a legal someone whose parents broke the population law and had the third child instead of staying with the two. So that's a shadow child because they have to live in the shadows. Okay. And then compare and contrast the personalities of Luke and Jen, both vastly different. Luke, he's constantly full of fear and nerves, and he is curious, but he's not venturous enough or to push that. He wants to still honor and obey his parents and not go beyond that. Versus Jen, who is brave, she is confident, um, she is a true leader, and we find out in subsequent chapters that she is organizing, and she is you will see her intelligence and her bravery in this, and she is willing to risk everything for freedom. And so, chapter 16, why does Luke sense that he must keep Jen a secret? Because he knows his parents would forbid him to go back. And then about Jen's dad, what job does he have? And it's a lawyer for the government. And then what does Jen think of the government leader? She says it herself that government leaders are the worst ones for breaking laws. The ironic. So those are just some of the key points for chapters 8 through 16 here. Please keep an eye out for the next review. Make sure to utilize this on your preparation for your study guide and your quiz coming up. Thank you.